listening to a podcast, Black Lodge Trivia Night. I've never heard so many game aspirations in my life. All right, welcome back to Black Lodge Trivia Night. This is Art, and once again, we are down a Matt and a Patrick. So I'll be doing some solo hostile this afternoon when it goes up. It is actually quite early in the morning. But Matt and Patrick are definitely not attending the wedding of one to at the esteemed location of I like. But alas, I was not asked. So I'll be here, helming the ship, until we can get the whole band back together. And if you remember last time, I'm actually kind of excited. I'm hoping this is sort of starting to steamroll towards the end. I'm curious to see where this lands. Because if you remember last time, we finally got aboard the Lady Luck, which was the original mission objective to begin with. And things were weird. You know, you do a sweep of the ship. So first of all, there was an SOS message that had sort of like a little bit of an encoded blip in it, mentioning there might have been a hostage sort of takeover kind of thing. And a couple of people on board the ship recognized it. May is a security officer. Dell did. I can't remember if Captain Useless did or not, but maybe. Anyway, so they get aboard the Lady Luck, and they find the crew of Lady Luck inside their hyperspace chambers. But while they were in it, the chambers were destroyed. They were all killed. There's part of, I think it was Cargo 3 damaged, so there's like a hole blown in the side of the ship. And inside that area, which was locked off, no atmosphere, no life support, Lady Luck's Dell 2, was in there sort of like in a power sleep mode. And I think I was having May and JM enter the damaged cargo ship, cargo area. And when they approached Dell 2, he sort of, whatever proximity sensors he might have or whatever it is, it sort of woke him from a sleep state. Or maybe they woke him up, but whatever it is, like his eyes kind of opened and he came to life a little bit. And that's where we faded to black. So, yeah. So let's see where this goes. What I might do. Sometimes I try and think of like, man, like, is this going to make any sense whatsoever? And then I'm like, how can I piece these threads together? Not sure. I'm not sure I can in this case, but let's find out what happens. What I might do here is let's just get some roll tables. I'm going to do 3 rolls on the inspiration table. I can never tell. Does it let me? No. Just so I have something. Might not mean anything, right? Electrical exomorph sounds collating. Steel secret talented. Locked out prophet. Explorer protocol. Activation faction dying friendship. Waiting pride charming. Okay. I'm going to jot a few down here. The ones that are jumping out at me are obviously secret. Profit. Betray corruption. I like corruption. Betray was a tight second. Activation. And waiting pride charming. I'm gonna go with charming. Okay, secret profit, corruption, activation, charming. And, hey, play this game at home, right? Like maybe you can start with using those five 5 sort of triggers, maybe you can, oh man, what I would do in this situation is this, that, and this. Trust me, what I'm about to do is going to be worse, and I apologize in advance. But the great thing is that hopefully this inspires you to go grab a copy of some solo RPG, even if it's not this one. This one I think has been awesome, and just dive right in. So given that, main JM, you know what, let's also, one other thing that I haven't done in a while. Let me bring this back in. I feel like one thing I haven't been doing is drama points. I feel like we've completed a couple of scenes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a drama point. I'm going to make it a 5. Now, if you remember, with drama points, what you do is you roll a 2d6, add your drama points. If it's 14 or higher, stuff starts to happen. So let me detach this, get it back out of the way. Again, I love version 14, those little touches. Did I put the roll table drama encounter combat creation? I don't know if I put it in here. Doesn't matter if I did or not, but honestly, if you start to look at these, like, encounter tables, like all of it, you could, in theory, you could just roll the inspiration tables and just make up a like, if like, hey, I'm looking for a malfunction, sure, roll the malfunction table, or, like, I feel like you can just use kind of the inspiration tables for everything. So what I'm going to do, building plot, I think this is what. So let's do a 2d6 plus 5. And we're trying to, if it's 14 or higher, we're in trouble. It is definitely going to be 14 or higher. Okay. Right off the bat. So let's see what this type of crisis is going to be. Immediately, drama points gained. Make a drama roll 2d6. Add your current total. Roll 1d6. Now, let's just take a look at this. We got a natural or technical catastrophe. Which I'm comfortable with. I don't know if if it started to get like cosmic horror, I don't know what I would do. But let's bring in the solo rules real quick. Let me jot that down. Natural or technical catastrophe. So we got a lot to work. And you know what? This is good. We didn't blow our crisis like on episode 4 of a 12 episode run or whatever. So this is good. So we've got secret, profit, corruption, activation, charming, all while a natural or technical catastrophe are occurring. I think it has to be technical, but so I like this. We're sort of having a lot of things culminating here as we get to the end, and that's how it should be. Looming crisis. Let's just see what they have to say about a... Okay, so they see either some catastrophic malfunction on board the ship or an environmental disaster imperils the crew and threatens their ship. On a ship, the catastrophe might be caused by a meteoroid or debris strike, totally destroying the vessel. Okay, similar to the mission to Mars gravity, it could be a crash landing that leaves them stranded. Things look bleak. Can the crew survive? Can they salvage any technology? We're not going to worry about those larger questions at the moment. So let's get this out of the way. Okay. So yeah, we've got stuff piling on, and who knows how much we actually use, but it's good to have it at our fingertips just in case it comes into play. Okay, so JM and May, they are at Cargo 3, which is damaged. They are there when Del 2 comes to life. And let's get that game paused out of the way. Not that it matters at all, but I get tired of seeing it move. And just a refresher, Doc Brown and Olivia are back aboard the Noctua. So Del 2, he's an android, but there's obviously going to be some, he's in a vacuum with no, at absolute zero temperatures. And so they're going to get him into the ship. They figure out the airlocks, they get him into the ship. And for lack of a better word, they bring him to the med bay. I don't know if he would need the med bay or if there would be some, but maybe in the med bay is what they need to, 3D print new skin patch, whatever stuff is there. It's not just a human being med bay. It's also where like an android, which is like, part biological, would get fixed up as well. So I forget what a day it was doing, but we'll just bring her over. Everybody let's say just everybody makes their way to the med bay. And they radio back to the ship. They radio back to the Noctua, and they're like, hey, Doc Brown, we're going to need you over here. We've got a situation. It's pretty bad. And Doc Brown, again, she's like, I'm on my way. And I forget how they got it. Did they soft lock? I think they were able to soft lock, the two ships. So Doc Brown suits up just in case something goes wrong on the soft lock, traveling the distance. Olivia, you stay behind. You keep an eye on the Lady Luck, and if we need anything, we'll let you know. Let me see something here. What's Olivia's electronics? Okay. All right. Yeah, so she's monitoring stuff. And she's like, got it. And she's, so she's sort of half monitoring stuff. She's keeping an eye on things. She's going to be, she's thinking about Doc Brown now making the transit over. Maybe May comes over, sort of like an assist, make sure, you're tethered and, and then they get back over to the ship. Out of curiosity, are there there's spacesuit vac suits? Let's just do a roll just in case. 5, 6, an effective -2. What I want to do is let me reattach this hostile. Again, not that she's going to screw up, but let's just see task resolution with a -2. That's a die modifier. No. Okay, so is her passage over to the ship clean? The answer is going to be no. Let's do one more inspiration table. Let's see what types of crisis. Let's see what I have all these other ones. Let's just see what the other tables do. Combat resolution, ship malfunction. It's not really a ship malfunction, but let's just see what it does. Okay, internal compensators. Okay, so let's just say I think that can apply to a spacesuit. So, maybe she has little little adjusters, and those are, something goes wrong with those. So it actually makes it quite complicated for her, not quite complicated, but it makes it a little more complicated for her to navigate over, and it's a good thing that May was there to help with that adjustment. So yeah, meanwhile, Olivia's back on the ship. And again, there's a lot going on. She's like, hey, what the hell's going on? They're saying it's pretty bad. They didn't give any details over the comms. So she's only half noticing that there's something off with longer range comms. Like the short range comms between the Lady Luck and the Noctua are pretty seamless, but there's sort of some kind of interference building on the longer range potential communication sensors, whatever you want it to call it. But there's something's going on with something that would detect, communicate further out. But again, she's catching it out of the corner of her eye, but she's not exactly sure what's going on. And she's not really focused on it. She's really more locked in on sort of the details that are getting teased from the Lady Luck. So they get over there. Doc Brown looks at the crew and she's like, Jesus Christ. Maybe they haven't touched him. Maybe they've just left him. I would say they probably left them sealed in the hypersleep chambers because maybe you could see through it that a little bit of decay is kicked in. So like they know if they open that up, it's just going to be dealing with a lot. So like let's leave those closed for now. We can help them. And we'll treat them with the dignity they deserve in a moment. Let's sort of keep getting our heads wrapped around what's going on here. And so then she turns back to the med bay and she sees Del standing there, and then she looks down on the table and she sees Del too, sort of functioning, but like skin's messed up. Maybe the eyes have been frozen. So she's like, okay, we're gonna need to do like sort of like a pretty big tune-up here, a pretty big overhaul. Del, are you able to check the stores and just see what's available? And Del, he sort of, plugs into the computer directly. And he plugs into the computer directly and starts checking the stores. And he's like, yeah, no, they have a full rebuild kit, as standard, maybe they have two or something, but yeah, a backup and a backup to the backup. So he's like, if you want me to get that, I can set it up and blah, blah, blah. But while he's accessing the computer, because he's directly interfacing with the computer, he doesn't just type on a keyboard or say, computer, I need the, clear aluminum formula or whatever. So he's directly accessed into the computer. And while he's doing that, Del 2 sort of goes eyes a little wider and then sort of head back and forth a few twitches. And then he sort of sits up like an inch and then just lies back down. And nobody's really paying attention. They're watching him do this, but behind them, they would have seen Del's head back, forth, a couple of twitches in a pause before he detaches. So the two androids just had a moment. Because I would imagine Del 2 is like, just like we're all like wirelessly connected to our own homes, like Del 2 would be literally wirelessly connected on some level. And maybe there's like, air gap measures or something to make sure something doesn't go haywire, but Del was not air gapped. Del just directly connected, and I guess why would he? I don't know, maybe, who knows? Don't think about it too much. I'm not. So, maybe it was just like, maybe the type of information you get, maybe just like, there was like a notification, like, hey, somebody's connected. So, yeah, so now Del, he has his little head shake back and forth that nobody really catches because they're noticing Del 2 on the table sort of having a moment. And Tom's like, whoa, what was that? And Adea, she's an engineer, electronics. Jam's a pilot. May security. Del was doing something else. Let's give her an engineering role. Electronics role, doesn't matter. Make it an engineering role. I feel like engineering is bigger stuff. Okay, so she does all right. She does all right. She gets an effective 3. Now, an effective 3 means, again, if we bring up the results table, a 3 is yes. So does she understand what just happened? And the answer is yes, she does. You know, and she's like, yeah, no, that's something that sometimes happens, you know, when there's like a data burst, you know, being sent or received, and there's a lot of like physical damage to systems. Like sometimes wires might get crossed, and so the data burst might take priority, and it might send like weird instructions to, in this case, like the nervous sort of movement or something, you know. So it's not crazy that like in a highly damaged android like this, something like that might happen. Again, no one saw it also happen to Del. So anyway, okay, so Del 2 is on the table. Doc Brown is like, okay, look, this is gonna take a little while. You know, we're gonna have to like, it's not like a total rebuild, but there's a lot of damage. So we're gonna be doing obviously a full like exterior replacement. And, you know, Ade, if you could stay behind and help me. Might be Del. Del, if you could stay behind and, you know, help me go over the internals, make sure everything's 5x5 on the internals, that'd be much appreciated. And Del is like, of course. So let's try this. I don't know if it's going to work. So we've got Del 2 on the table. The rest of the crew's over there. Olivia's back on the ship. Del and Doc Brown are going to be trying to rebuild Del 2. Charming, activation, corruption, profit. Secret. Here's what's going to happen. That data burst was Del 2 uploading to Del and sending Del into the android on the table. So it was sort of like so combined, you know, so there's something going on with the data systems, the computers here aboard the Lady Luck. It's jamming up like long range signals on some level. Olivia sort of half noticed it. And in that moment, when Del plugged into the computer, Del 2 took that opportunity to sort of body switch, sort of brute force his sort of whatever, his central cortex, his, you know, it's sort of like the top level of who he is, to switch it and put himself so he's back to being active. Del 2 is back to being sort of mobile in a fully functional android kind of suit. Now, this kind of stuff is not usually something that should be happening, obviously, right? So the fact that this is what's going on is something's quite wrong here aboard the Lady Luck. But nobody knows that yet. So we've got Del 2, who is now masquerading as Del. Del is now locked down on the table, basically so beat up that he can't really function. And Doc Brown goes to work. Doc Brown says, why don't you, see to maybe helping out the lost souls in the hypersleep chamber? You know, maybe we can, you know, start putting them to rest. and start, and then once we've taken care of the people, once we've taken care of their Del, we can start figuring out what's going on from there. And, it's kind of somber, right? It's not going to be like JM and Tom being like, "Oh, what?" It's kind of a somber moment. They sort of, solemnly nod, and they head to hypersleep. So Doc Brown and Del 2 are now operating on Del. And let's see, Doc Brown, she's a good doctor, obviously. So let's give her a roll. She's getting 9, which means she's getting a 12, which means she has an effect of 4, which means she's yes-anding. You succeed, but with an extra positive twist. That's what a 4 or 5 means. Del 2 is going to be doing his computer or electrical stuff, so let's give him a roll. Interesting. Okay, so he succeeds with an effect of 3, which is a yes. So we've got a yes and with a little bit of extra zhuzh from Doc Brown, and we've got a straight yes from Del 2. So here's what's happening. Doc Brown gets to work on the med bay. I feel like I can... let's copy and paste. Let's see if I can... Cargo bay or sick bay. Let's just bring him here. I didn't mean to do it all the way down there. Olivia's back on board ship. We got Del. Got Del 2. So Del's on the table. Doc Brown and Del 2 are working. They're on the rest of the ship. So what's going on here is that Doc Brown is starting to do the repairs, starting to do, maybe cutting away some of the skin, maybe getting like a little scoop or a little sucker that, pops the damaged eyes out, and so you can swap them in. And Del is getting sort of the parts ready, and he's sort of hooking wires up to a port, maybe somewhere on Del's like base of the neck, start doing the diagnostics there. And it's all going well, but the yes and that Doc Brown gets is that she realizes the make and model number isn't right. Now, she's not sure what exactly she's seeing, but she knows she knows that she's looked at the personnel files a lot. She spent a lot of time studying them. She's supposed to be on top of all that stuff. So she just knows that, wait a minute, that like the first 2 letters don't look right. There's something as she's cutting away the skin. She, she's sort of like maybe got like the assistance of a camera or something to help her, do more precise this or that, or make sure she's not cutting wires. And it just comes across a serial number. And it's not right. And she's like, wait, this is really curious. Now, Del 2, like I said, was sort of going through the motions of getting the stuff out of the closet, getting, the parts ready. But clearly, if he's done this switch, he's not looking for Del to actually get fixed. So yeah. So he's not looking for Del to actually get fixed. So how do I want to do this? Here's the thing, right? In this kind of story, there is a whole section on combat, right? There's a whole section. Who sees who? What range? We would be at short range, initiative rolls, hand-to-hand attacks, doing this much damage, and it's all... I think this would be more interesting if you were doing like a bit of a grid-based combat, but this is a very narrative encounter. And what I want to have happen is for Doc to recognize that something's wrong. And she's like, oh, this is kind of particular. This is odd. Peculiar, not particular. This is peculiar. Something's odd here. And, it's not exactly occurring to her that she's not looking at the right Del, right? Oh, wait, no. That is what she would expect. I'm sorry, because she's looking at the physical form of the other Del. So scratch all that. Her yes and is that, what could it be? Maybe on maybe like their eyes, they can be like little displays, because why not? So maybe because it's all cloudy, she's trying to read, something's coming up on his eyes like, zzz, and she's like, okay, is that just like status update? Is that, let me get the camera on that. And it's hard to read because his eyes are damaged, so it's not like a clear screen, but she's got the camera and she's trying to piece it out. And she realizes it's a warning message trying to explain that, this is Del serial number 843843, the kind of information that would confirm that Del is actually on the table, not Del 2. And she's like, this is really bizarre. He's getting readouts that seem to be telling me. And so Del, is looking at the screens behind him, and it's clear there what it's saying. It's like, warning, flashing up warning signs. And Doc Brown is like, Del, are you seeing this? And when she turns around to look at it, she sees over Del 2's shoulder, like clearly printing on the screen what the warning message is. And her eyes go wide as it finally clicks, like something's wrong. And as it clicks, Del 2, who had something in his hands, like, patch cables or something, he quickly spins them around her neck and snaps it. Whoops. Knocking stuff around here. Punching, whoops. One sec. Okay. I got so much stupid shit on my desk to try and do this. Like I said at some point, I spent a lot of time working on the audio. Now I'm started trying to work on how does lighting work, stuff like that. And I talk with my hands, and if I could have a bigger desk, things wouldn't be, I'll show you, here, if you look on this side of the screen, gonk, that's a barn door for a light. It is right there. And the same is true right there. And I just whacked. Anyway, doesn't matter. That's how the sausage gets made. So he wraps the patch cable around her neck, and it's not like a quick strangle. He's able to then use it and just go, because he's an android. He's going to be a little stronger, and he pops her neck, and she just collapses. Sign a status effect. Dead. So now he's kind of looking, and Del on the table, physically is not doing well. He's got maybe part of his skin hanging off. One of his eyes had been removed to be replaced. And Del realizes, oh shit, I got to do something here. And so what he does is he stashes the body, first and foremost. Where? Who knows? But he stashes the body. And then he gets into the computer and he powers Del down. So we're going to say Del's out. And so then, so he hides the body. Let's see, what would that be? I mean, do we need to roll something? Feels like it'd be kind of like a stealth roll. 5, which is a -3. Now a -3 is not great, so let's bring up solo rules again. And we're looking for task resolution. -3, no. So the question is, does he hide Doc Brown well? The answer is no. He doesn't. Maybe part of what happens is he's trying to do a good job hiding. He's in the process of it. And maybe a message comes over the radio. At the meantime, he's like, hey, Doc Brown, this is Captain Tom. I think we're gonna need some body bags. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get them out of the hyperspace chambers, in one piece. I'm sorry to say. So, we're gonna be down in a minute, and we're gonna need to grab some body bags from the med bay. And Del 2 panics, and he's like, "Oh shit." Okay, like he's quickly putting together, a hiding space, and he sort of kind of gets her in there, but it's not polished like he would hope it would be. It's much more makeshift than he was intending. And he sort of like rolls his eyes in the back of his head a little bit, and he's like, and then he hits the intercom button, and with sort of like, we can do it today. It doesn't always sound great, but we can, do AI voice stuff. And so he has a couple of samples of Doc Brown's voice from the last couple minutes, and it's not enough to get it perfect. But he sort of jiggles, he does something to the comms a little bit, so it's gonna be a little broken up. But he's like, "Yeah, that sounds good. I'm gonna be heading back to," and he's making sure it's on the internal communications. And maybe if this wasn't on internal communications, like he switches it internal. It's like, hey, switch to the ship's comms. I'm having some issues. And he's like, okay. And he switches to the ship's comms. And he's like, hey, I need to go back to the ship. There's a couple things I need from our med bay. And then I'll be right back. And May hears this. And she's like, there's something wrong with your suit. Do you need an assist? And he's like, no. That's honestly, I'll be fine. It's just, I've already done it once. I'll be good. But yeah, grab the body bags. I powered down Del 2 for the time being. And yeah, we'll go from there. I'm like, okay. This is great. So Tom just rolled his leadership and tanked it with a -4, which is a no and. So May is sitting there going like, I really should give her a hand. And Tom is like, no. And goddamn it, like, look, let's let her do her thing. Let's trust her. Let's let her, make her call. We've got stuff we have to do. There's a lot going on. So he finally uses this moment to be like, damn it, I'm the captain, and I'm going to assert some authority at the exact moment when he should have trusted May, who was like, something's off. And so everybody's like, okay, look. Everybody sort of steps back a little bit because they're like, we've given him a hard time. This moment feels relatively innocuous. Let's not blow it up here. So Tom, picks the exact wrong moment to finally stand up and take command. Tom, thank you for your service. So they're like, okay, fine. So they make their way to medbay, and they show up, and it's what they expect to see. They see Del 2, but it's actually Del powered down on the table. No sign of Doc Brown. Maybe there's a couple of patch cables still half plugged into into the computers behind them, and they're like, oh, what's going on? And Del 2 is like, oh, she just needed we needed an adapter. It wasn't, one of our cables wasn't working, and she was like, oh, okay. And again, because of Tom's terrible role, like, he's gotten everybody primed to just believe the narrative. And so they're like, all right, in that case, like, Del, is there anything you need to do while we're here? And he's like, no, not really, And they're like, well, why don't you give us a hand in the hypersleep chambers? And he's like, of course, I will come with you and help. And so we have, where's Del? Del 2. Doc Brown is no longer with us, so science status effect, dead. Del is stuck in a med bay, unconscious, and group of 4 of our heroes with Del 2 incognito, having just murdered Doc Brown, are on their way to the hypersleep chamber. And that's where we'll fade to black. What the hell's going on? Oh, man. All right. So there we go. That's this week's session. Natural, technical, catastrophe, charming, activation. I feel like we got activation, corruption, secret, I feel like there's, we're sort of making those words, using them to inspire some of the stuff that's going on. Yeah. So that's going to be it for this week's session. It's, a little bit of an abbreviated one. I mean, they always are when it's one of these things. And, apologies for, we always think that we're going to get the whole band back together. And there's always like a lot of last minute stuff, which is why a lot of times I'm coming in pretty hot on this. Or, Patrick, I really enjoyed his Patrick Presents, but that was very much a like, well, shit, we were supposed to record, and now 40 minutes beforehand, in that case, Matt had to back out earlier. I had to back out right at the last time. There's just so much stuff that happens. And so I was getting ready to do like, okay, I'm going to squeeze in a hostel. I don't know if I can. And then Patrick, stepped up and did a Patrick Presents, and that was a lot of fun. So, because sometimes I look at our schedule, I'm like, God, like, we're not actually getting the whole band back together very often. When I look at, this video, it's been like 3 weeks, then it was 4 weeks before that, and then it was 2 weeks. I don't know if there's anything to be done about that. But I want to apologize, because what it means is you're probably getting way more of me by myself doing this stuff when that's not the intention. But it continues to be fun. And like I said, like, I'm ready, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean this, I'm really ready to see how this wraps up, because I'm really curious to see how it all comes together. And of course, like, there's also like, you start like, oh, what's the other thing on my shelf that I could give a shot? But I'm genuinely really interested in seeing where this goes. So I'm happy to have gotten another session in, and I'm happy to see that it's like, it feels like it's ramping up to an ending of some kind. So we'll see how many more we have going. Otherwise, here in the States, at the time of this recording, it's 4th of July weekend, which is part of what's making it so tricky to schedule. So if you're here in the United States, I hope you have a great holiday weekend. I hope it's a safe holiday weekend, because, people do some stuff with fireworks. So I hope you have a great time. I hope you spend it doing exactly what you want to do and enjoying yourself, maybe even getting a little nerd stuff in, getting some role-playing in if you get a long weekend. Otherwise, if you're watching this, you found our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell if that's your thing. If you prefer audio versions of this kind of stuff, like the actual plays of the RPGs or our RPG discussion podcast, just search for Black Lodge Trivia Night wherever you get your audio, and we should show up. Got some stuff on the CRPG front. If that's your thing, there's lots of Let's Plays. That's my sickness. So otherwise, we've got a Discord if you want to jump in, chat about RPGs, CRPGs. Otherwise, we hope you're doing well. Hope everything's good. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. The in-session music was provided by Tabletop RPG Music and composed by Ian Fisher. You can find the Patreon at www.patreon.com/tabletop RPG music. That's all one word.